Hey everybody, we're back. We're back at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. He's Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. And I hope each and every one of you has your dancing slippers on because it's the big dance time, Jay. It's a fun time of year for us. We know it's a fun time of year for you guys. It hasn't been quite as Cinderella or David against Goliath of late. It's been a little chalky, kind of favorite laden with the NIL money and transfers. But if this year's conference tournaments are any indication, maybe, Jay, we see that Cinderella story again. But we're excited about college basketball tournament that gets kicked off with the play-in games on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, and you brought up the Cinderella story, and I think that's what this first weekend is about, is finding that Cinderella story. Can we get that team that's a 8 seed or higher to potentially win a game, not only in the first round, but the second round?
Is Miami O a Cinderella story?
No, Miami. Well, but they are, because they're a 7-point underdog
right.
in a play-in game, and if they win. But anybody that's coming from these mid-majors, you could call a Cinderella story. So we're going to be cheering for them all. We want that Cinderella story. And Dick Vitale, the other thing he always used to talk about was the diaper dandies, the freshmen. And that's the big story of this tournament is the number of freshmen that are the best players on their team. The best players in the country are these freshmen that we're seeing for these teams. So those two aspects, Cinderella stories and diaper dandies, those got me ready to go for this year's tournament.
Isn't there a reason, though, that we see so many freshmen now? Because kids just aren't staying in school that much longer.
Well, I mean, we'll see.
They're kind of one and done anymore.
The NBA has so much money to offer for you to go there, and we'll see if that nil money in college basketball can find a way to keep some of these kids longer. But when you have the talent and the NBA is going to take you, and you get those big contracts in the NBA, there's no reason to stay down in this ranks.
So we're going to dive into it a little bit and kind of break down some of the regions and some questions that we think might be interesting for you guys. John did a great job of kind of putting some stuff together. So, and we really didn't go over our notes at all or compare before we jumped on here. So we're going to preview the regions: East, South, West, Midwest. But let's start with who do I think is the most stacked region? For me, it's the East. When you have Duke, UConn, Michigan State, Kansas, and St. John's as your number 5, which I'm shocked that the committee made them a 5. They won the Big East regular season tourney. They won the conference tournament. They beat UConn twice, yet they're still the number 5. And for me, the East region's all about experience and teams that come in really hot right now. So I'm going to go with the East for me as the toughest region.
Yeah, I'm going to argue with you. I think there is a tougher region, but I'm not going to knock on the fact that the East is very difficult. We talk about a UConn team, and we know what UConn has done in tournaments in the past, being a number 2 seed, and then stuck in the same region with Duke, Michigan State being the 3
Johnny's
in that
beat
region.
Them twice.
You've got Kansas at the 4, obviously, potentially number 1 pick on Kansas. St. John's definitely seeded as a 5. You could argue that they're misseeded. They probably should have been a 4 or better, especially with dominating the Big East. And the fact that St. John's and UConn, the 2 teams from the Big East, get stuck in the same region. I know it's the East. They want to keep them at home, but you put those 2 best teams in the same regional and not give them a chance to get out, with Duke being stuck in that same region. But for me, the juggernaut bracket is the South. And the South features Florida as the number 1, Houston as the number 2, Illinois as the number 3, Nebraska as the number 4, and Vanderbilt as number 5. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper in here, and I'm going to talk about not only the seedings that you see within these 2 regions, but when we talk about power ratings, and power ratings are how racing sportsbooks or sportsbooks directors make point spreads. It's not necessarily the rankings that you see from a college basketball standpoint. That doesn't determine the point spread over those teams. So I would tell you that Duke is the number 1 seed in the college basketball tournament, and Duke is also the number 1 rated team in college basketball from a point spread standpoint, a power rating standpoint. But we talk about the number 2 seed in that region, UConn. They are 11th in the power rating standpoint from a point spread making standpoint. So much so,
and they got beat by St. John's twice.
So much so that number 3 seed in that region, Michigan State, is actually the 9th best team from a power rating standpoint. So number 3, Michigan State, would be a favorite over number 2, UConn, on a neutral floor from a power rating standpoint. And then you want to go deeper, Kansas is the number 21 ranked team from a power rating standpoint, and St. John's is number 17th ranked team. So keep those numbers in mind: 1, 17, 21, 9, and 11. And now we're going to move to the South, where we talk about Florida, Houston, Illinois, Nebraska, and Vanderbilt. Just do some math. East, add all those things up, those seedings, power rating-wise, add up to 59. The East adds up to a 59. In the South, we have Florida, who's the number 4 ranked team in the country from a power rating standpoint. We have Houston, who's the number 5 ranked team from a power rating standpoint. We have Illinois, who's a number 7 ranked team from a power rating standpoint. Nebraska is the 4 seed. They're the 14th team from a power rating standpoint. And Vanderbilt, the 5, is the 13th team from a power rating
off
standpoint.
a big win against Florida.
So that adds up to 42. So 59 for the East, 42 for the South. Just for craps and giggles, the Midwest is a 60 and the West is a 57. So when we add up those power ratings on how we make point spreads, East 59, Midwest 60, West 57. Pretty good balance there. However, the South, the top 5 seeds, add up to 42. So for me, the South is the juggernaut, and it features 2 teams that we saw in the championship game last year,
right.
Florida and Houston, now in the same regional as the one in the 2.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, I think, when you looked at it last year, there was, I think, less than a handful of games the first couple of days that you saw less than a double-digit favorite. This year you have 17 favorites that are 20 points or more, and 19 favorites that are double digits. So you've got, the adjustments have been made. It's been so chalky the last couple of years and very favorite laden. Not as good for us. We didn't see as many Cinderella stories. We didn't see David against Goliath like we have. It's not the same tournament we've seen over the last 5 or 10 years. The last few years were really, really favorite laden. There's been a lot of adjustments made. I think we saw it in some of the conference tournaments where you saw a lot more parity, a lot more puppy love, and the adjustments have been made now for the tournament.
Well, there's been some injuries. Obviously, we talk about Duke missing some guys, Texas Tech's injured, Michigan's got some injuries. So some of those teams at the top are playing without some of their top guys. We may get them back, we may not. The big difference here is when we talk about that mid-major that used to be competitive, just 2, 3, 4 years ago. They don't have the nil money
right.
that these Power 5 conferences have. So if you as a player, you can go play college basketball as a mid-major, be a starter, have a great career at that mid-major, or you can maybe go be the 4th, 5th, or 6th guy on a Power 5 conference team, but you're also maybe making $200,000 or $300,000 in nil money. So you can be the starter on that mid-major, or you can be a bench guy or a 4th or 5th guy on the Power 5 and make a bunch of money. And so a lot of these guys have gone to these Power 5 schools, and that's why you see these monster separations
right.
of the good teams from the bad teams, especially when we start to get to tournament
and it's gone
time.
the other way for such a long time, though.
Well, you had guys that were 3, 4, 5-year
right.
players.
Remember Miami of Florida a few years ago.
Staying at those
right.
mid-majors
yep.
because that had a chance to win. Now
yep.
those guys are gone. They're going to the NBA, or they're switching
transferring
schools
right.
to get nil money.
Yep. So, I know we talked about the toughest region. How about the easiest region? For me, I think it's the West. Arizona received a more favorable draw. Arizona still would have to play Arkansas or Whiskey, but I still think when you look at that bracket, for me, Arizona has the clearest path to get to the Final Four of all 4 number 1s.
Well, I'll give you a preview right off the bat. I love Arizona. I have Arizona winning the tournament. We talked about the West in their first 5 seeds. The seeds added up to 57. The Midwest with Michigan and Iowa State added up to 60. So I'm not going to say that the Arizona bracket is the easiest of the brackets. We saw Purdue, obviously the Big Ten champion, just knock off Michigan. They're the number 2 seed there. Obviously out West, we still have Gonzaga. Arkansas, who just won the SEC, so we get the Big Ten champion, the Big 12 champion, and the SEC champion, all in that West bracket. But the Midwest to me is where I can see some upsets happening. I think it's a very heavy top-laden bracket in Michigan and Iowa State. I think those 2 teams are a class above everybody else in the bracket, and if I had to say upset specials or where we may see some shockers, I'm going to point to the Midwest bracket and look for those shockers coming out of the Midwest.
We used to have a team nicknamed the Shockers.
The Wichita State Shockers.
Who used to be in it a lot. But, yep. I think when you look at the early rounds now, we've talked about how many games have big numbers in it. But some of the must-watch games for me in round 1. Think about number 7, St. Mary's against number 1, A&M. St. Mary's had a coach there in Bennett who's been there for 25 years. A&M's head coach, Bucky McMillan, he's in his first year right now. And what a contrast in styles between these two teams. St. Mary's more deliberate, coming up and down the court. You look at the way that A&M plays, they play a full court press. They're running and gunning. It's a much different style with these two. I think it's a really intriguing matchup with the difference in kind of philosophy and the difference in style with these two teams.
That's my notes. Again, we didn't talk about what we had on the games. St. Mary's definitely wants to play a slow, controlled game. Texas A&M wants to play it up and down. Total sits at 147 with St. Mary's being a 3-point favorite there. So a definite contrast in style. And normally when you have the up and down team playing the slow pace team, the slow pace team wins that battle, at least in slowing the game down.
Providing they're winning or it's a really close game. If they fall behind against buckyball, as they like to call it in Texas A&M, then I think it becomes problematic because you have to get out of your comfort zone to make that run. So if A&M can get that lead and get out in front and really kind of dictate tempo, I think it creates some problems for St. Mary's. But if St. Mary's is able to kind of keep it close and you take the other side, A&M, out of that up tempo, that full court press, you're able to break the press, I think it really favors St. Mary's. Yeah. So now let's look at two. We're going to jump ahead a little bit here. How about matchups that we're looking forward to in round 2?
Well, stay with the first round matchups because I've got at least 6 or 7 games that I'm desperate to watch. Starting off with the very first game that we're going to see on Thursday morning at 9:15 that's going to kick off the tournament, and you want to bet team to score the first 10 points, team to score the first 20 points, and be cheering and rocking and rolling. I think one of the best games of the entire first round is the 8-9 matchup that kicks off the tournament, and that's Ohio State and TCU. Both teams have dynamic players. TCU knocked off Florida early in the year, so they've definitely got that ability to knock a team off. We saw Ohio State play an absolutely fantastic game and almost knock off Michigan this last week. So for me, one of the great games of the first round, Ohio State TCU, and then
I actually have TCU moving on, so I have them actually as a little bit of that quasi Cinderella team that I think can move on a bit.
And not much of a wait to get to one of my second favorite games, tipping at 10:30 on Thursday morning, Louisville and South Florida, which is a 6-11 matchup. Is a game that you want to watch teams go up and down the floor and chuck 3-pointers. Louisville averages 84 points a game. South Florida averages 87 points a game. That's good for 8th and 20th in the country. South Florida's had 6 games this year where they've scored more than 100 points. So Louisville, and our total on the game is 165.5. So these two teams are going to get up and down the floor. We do have a question mark injury whether Michael Brown is going to play for Louisville. But this is also one of my upset alert. I think South Florida, the 11, as a 5.5, 6-point dog against Louisville is one of those dogs you should be checking out and potentially taking a look at.
Yep. So let's jump forward then now. How about those second round games? For me, I think no question, how about you get a St. John's Kansas matchup in the second round? You get a Vandy Nebraska matchup in the second round, and UCLA UConn. Now we're just guessing that's going to happen. There could be other occurrences or upsets, but man, St. John's and Kansas in the second round.
Patino versus Bill Self, all the way, just to get to the Sweet 16.
Think about that bracket though, with the coaches that are in that bracket, isn't it? It's Patino, it's Self, and what, Izzo? I mean, it's crazy. Yep. I mean, it's just you've got such legends in that bracket. But man, Kansas Louisville in that second, or Kansas St. John's. I'm thinking about Patino at Louisville. Really, I think is an intriguing matchup.
The one I had just from a second round matchup, and I'm looking into the Midwest region. Virginia sits at the 3 in that region with an opening game against Wright State. Tennessee will end up playing the winner of your Miami of Ohio and SMU. But I do think that's an interesting game. Tennessee versus Virginia, obviously ACC, SEC. But that's one that I had circled as a much-watch second-round game.
There's really a lot of interesting matchups. So I know we kind of touched on it a little bit too. We've talked about, as we're jumping around through these games and regions, is that it's been so chalky and favorite-laden over the last couple of years that we really haven't seen quite the David against Goliath or the Cinderella stories that we used to see. I mean, the crowd would be electric. Even if guests had a favorite, and you saw this favorite was getting beat by a long shot, the atmosphere flipped. I mean, people would be behind that Cinderella story and cheering and yelling and having fun in the book. So I'm trying to look for some Cinderella stories. And for me, I'm going to go with TCU to get to the second round. But a team that I really like in the second to move on is St. Louis. I think, you look at St. Louis and Robbie Avila, they're loaded with seniors. They can hit the 3 at over 40%. I think their offense is for real. and I think they're a hot team where I think they can have a chance to make some noise in the tournament. And I like Akron a little bit too. I think both teams come in as dogs. Akron a bigger dog, of course. I think it's 7.5. But I think both those teams that maybe aren't kind of on everybody's radar, I think can sneak and maybe win a game or two in the tournament.
Robbie Avila from Oak Forest, Illinois.
Correct.
My hometown, went to Oak Forest High School, so we'll be cheering for him. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. If we're talking about upset specials, teams that obviously when we look at the bracket and you start to talk about some of these schools that made it as automatic qualifiers by winning their tournament that are big underdogs that we're going to need to be cheering for. And I'm going to start off. We always go to the number 5 versus the number 12 seed. It almost every year in, year out, we see 12 seeds upset a number 5 seed. And I'm going to go talk about a team. I don't particularly like them a ton to win this game, but McNeese State was live as a 12 seed last year. They knocked off Clemson as a 5 seed last year. They're an 11.5-point dog to Vandy. We just saw Vandy play absolutely fantastic in the SEC tournament. They've got a guard combo with Tyler Tanner and Miles, 2 of the best guards in the country. So if those guys play well, going to be tough to upset for McNeese to upset them. But McNeese is going to be one of those teams that people are looking for as a 12 seed to pull that upset. But I'm going to give you the 12 seed that I think has a chance to pull the upset. And call me crazy, but I'm going to go against the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, the Wisconsin Badgers just looked absolutely fantastic in the Big Ten tournament.
They did.
But they are playing the 12 seed High Point. High Point, talk about teams in the country that can score. We talk about Wright State last year, a team that can score the basketball. Well, High Point can score the basketball. They are averaging 90 points a game, good for 3rd in the country. Wisconsin's averaging 83 points a game, about 35th in the country. Obviously, Wisconsin plays in the Big Ten. Total in this game is 164. Wisconsin is a 10-point favorite, but Wisconsin and Alabama, no team in the country relies on scoring their points more from the 3-point line than Alabama's number 1. But Wisconsin's up there in the ratings. They make about 12 3-pointers a game. And if any team's going to lose, you're going to get upset. It's because you couldn't drain those threes because you're so reliant on those threes. Wisconsin's reliant on the threes. High Point can score the basketball, take the 10 points, maybe take the money line, but if
we're going to need them.
It's 10 points, so it's not like the 12s. It's a close game, but one of these 12s potentially pull the upset. So maybe it's High Point. I said South Florida is a dog that I like. Utah State's the 9 seed, but they're a 2-point favorite. I kind of like them. There was one other one. Iowa's a 2-point favorite. Oh, VCU. VCU is playing North Carolina. Caleb Wilson going to be out for North Carolina. Again, we talk about that injury bug. Unfortunately, it hit North Carolina late in the season. I just don't know if they have enough to recover. VCU is the 11th seed in that region. They're only a 2.5-point dog, so that speaks to the fact that Carolina has backed their way into the tournament from what they were able to do early into the season. It's a monster loss for them. I do think VCU could potentially pull the upset over Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be looking for some of these upsets. I think, again, as I've kind of mentioned, it's been very kind of chalky and favorite-laden compared to what we've seen in the past. So I think what you saw in some of the conference play, that you saw some of these dogs play better. So I think we're going to be looking for that as well.
Well, but there's been so much conversation that Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and Florida are just unbeatable. They're the top 4 teams, and they're unbeatable. And obviously, we saw Arizona win their tournament, but they played a good, close game in the Big 12 tournament with Iowa State and pulled away late. We saw Florida get knocked off by Vanderbilt in the quarterfinals. Now, again, that game was in Nashville, so it kind of in Vanderbilt's backyard, but Florida lost by 17. Michigan, we saw them get knocked off in the Big Ten tournament, and Duke, despite the fact that they won, we saw Florida State have a chance to beat them, and we saw Virginia play them in a very, very close game. So as much as we see dominance or expect dominance, we did see maybe small chinks in the armor as we went into those conference tournaments.
We hope that continues a bit. So we've talked about kind of the number ones, and I think when you look at kind of what we've been talking about, which number 1 seed do you think is most likely to get bounced before the Final Four? And maybe I wouldn't have said this before the end of the conference tournaments, but I'm going to go with Florida. I think because of the bracket that they play in, with Houston, Illinois, and Nebraska, all ranked in the top 7 in either offensive or defensive efficiency, I think Florida's going to have a tough road, and as good as they are and as good as they're coached, I think Florida, for me, of the number ones, is a team that doesn't make the Final Four.
Yeah, and specifically looking at that South bracket where Florida is the 1 and Houston is the 2. And if you push those teams all the way out, in that game that would be the South Regional Final, that final is in Houston. So a home field, a home court advantage for the Houston Cougars, and obviously a rematch of last year's final. So I agree with you that I do like Florida in the region, but there is upset specials there, and not only from Houston, but Illinois is another team that could potentially knock Florida out. I like Iowa State over Michigan. I think Iowa State has played fantastic down the stretch, and I told you before, I have Arizona winning it all. Iowa State played close with them in the Big 12. I think Iowa State is a top 5 team in the country. I have them over Michigan. Again, the injuries are building on Michigan. We don't know if they're going to have all their guys. And I honestly, as much as I like the Duke Blue Devils, they got 2 key injuries. Maybe they're going to get one of those guys back. And I'm not sold on UConn yet, but I'm going to tell you a team that I like, and they got upset in the Big Ten tournament. But I like Michigan State to come out of the East. Izzo always finds a way. Jeremiah Fears, we're going to talk about guys that are going to be studs in this college basketball tournament and names that you need to know as we go through this college basketball tournament. And Jeremiah Fears is going to be one of those names that you're going to know, household name, by the time the tournament gets over with.
We're going to get into and talk to some of the players that we think can impact it, but in that region, for me, it's that I like Houston. I think Houston can cut down the nets. I think if they get an opportunity, that rematch game against Florida, I know they've had some struggles, but I look at them, the way they play offensive and defense, getting so close last year. That's my national champion.
Well, Kingston Fleming is absolutely fantastic. He's going to be a lottery pick in the NBA next year. Houston is loaded with 5 starters. They've got senior guys. Talk about not having diaper dandies.
Right.
They've got the one, but they've got a bunch of guys that have been there a bunch of years, and obviously from a coaching standpoint, they got one of the best.
Before we look at some players that could impact as well, so really quick, upset specials. A game that you really think, for me, it's number 10 Missouri over number 7 Miami. Missouri playing the game in St. Louis and getting points just seems wrong to me. I think, for me, that's my number 1 upset special.
Yeah, and I've already made mention of it. I'm the South Florida Bulls. That's the one I've got circled. They play Louisville 10:30 a.m. on Thursday. They're a 5.5-point underdog. I think that this is a game that South Florida can win. Both these teams are going to go up and down the floor. Not a lot of defense to be played there, and I think South Florida ends up on the better end of that. And then, like I said, take a shot with High Point. Maybe take a shot with McNeese. Those are 2 big underdogs that sit as 12 seeds that you're going to get a lot of value on the money line, like I said, because those teams are double-digit underdogs.
So I know you talked a little bit about some of the players that you think are going to be instrumental in the tournament, and you also mentioned the year of the freshmen. So let's just elaborate a little bit on that. I think you look at Florida and the guard play of Landon Lee. I think it's going to be interesting. Wisconsin and Nick Boyd. Ohio State is an experienced team, but Bruce Thornton has been underrated all year. I think those are some of the names that you could see that maybe kind of take over the tournament a bit and be that guy that'll be the one that everybody's talking about and elevates their team.
I've got a laundry list of guys. I think that guys that make a difference, talk about guys that are going to be playing in the NBA next year that could take over a game and dominate the presence. Talk about Jeremiah Fears from Michigan State is one of my guys. Keegan Wagler for Illinois put up 46, I think, in January against Purdue. He's another, young guy that can have those big games. So Wagler for Illinois is a game. We just saw Darius Akuff for Arkansas just basically dominate the SEC tournament. He's another guy single-handedly that can walk Arkansas through the tournament. Braden Smith, who was a preseason player of the year for Purdue. We just saw Purdue pull the big upset to win the Big Ten title. He's still a premium point guard here in the country. And if Purdue's going to make a run, it's going to be largely on the shoulders of Braden Smith. You talked about Kingston Fleming with Houston. Koa Pete, Arizona. We're not bringing up Cameron Boozer, who might be the freshman and the guy that we should be talking about on the number 1 seed.
We could talk about Duke,
and overall, if a guy's gonna win it, Duke single-handedly is going to go through Boozer as all the offense essentially flows through him all the time. But these other guys, the Floridas, the Arizonas, they don't have while they have those special guys, they're so much more of a
Team.
3 and 4
Yeah.
guys that
Right.
they go through and they flow through, and so it's not single threaded to this guy's got to have a big game, because they're kind of like 3-headed monsters that can go through, and they're so big. When we talk about Florida, you talk about Arizona. They are monster lines. We're talking about multiple, 6'11", 7-footers that they don't give up the offensive rebounds. They're not big on relying on 3-point shots. They bang it down low. They play great defense, and that's normally where you're going to find that championship pedigree of, do they have good guard play? Do they play good defense? And they shoot good shot percentage from the free throw line. Teams that try to go up and down the floor, turn the ball over a bunch, and rely heavily on the 3-point shot, don't have a good NCAA tournament history.
Right.
And some of that is, you're not playing on home floors anymore. You're playing at neutral sites, and a lot of times you're playing
It's the sight lines a
not
lot.
basketball
Right.
arenas.
You're not used to the sight lines, which really affects, I think, more the 3-point shooters than anything else.
You're playing in monster arenas that have different sight lines, bigger arenas, so something to look out for there. But I think that, again, when we talk about the upcoming tournament, the play-in games that we have on Tuesday and Wednesday, STN Sports, the match of the day that we offer with the 10% bonus, I've gone crazy this week. And on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you'll see that pink box of the match of the day, and you get a 10% odds boost. And what that means is, again, if you have a team that's minus 110, you're essentially going to get them at even money. You're not going to have to lay that extra 10 cents. You get a 10% boost in your odds. You're going to get 4 of those pink boxes on Thursday. You're going to get 4 of those pink boxes on Friday. You're going to get 4 on Saturday. You're going to get 4 on Sunday.
In other words, it's the final 4 in pink boxes every day.
When you get on that app, first thing you should look at is that pink box. It'll be a money line. See if you can take advantage of it. You're getting that 10% bonus, and it's on the best games kind of in those hours. Not looking at big point spreads, looking at the tight point spreads that are within the hour, competitive matchups. But make sure to check out the match of the day throughout the tournament week. You're going to have lots of bonuses available.
But with that said, too, don't forget STN Sports is 24/7. So with all the different times for the tournament games, starting early and going late, we know people are working different shifts and different hours. You always have access on your mobile app to all these games going off throughout the tournament, which is such a great feature.
Yeah, and it's not only the games. As we sit today, before we hit Thursday, go check out the app and bet teams to make the Elite 8, teams to make the Sweet 16. We talked about teams to score the first 10 points, teams to score the first 20 points. This place, we're sitting in Red Rock, the calm before the storm, when either Ohio State or TCU, the first team to score 10 of that opening game, this place will just absolutely erupt. It's crazy to see the number of people that are betting to score the first 10, to score the first 20, cash those tickets, get back up and bet the next game. March Madness, you get to cheer for the games, and you're kind of always wondering what's going on in the games as we sometimes get 3-4 games going on at a time, and people are cheering for 3-pointers and first half bets and second half bets. There's so many props available on the game. But again, get in the app, check it out. You've got to win it all, to win each region, Sweet 16s, Elite 8s, Final 4. So many offers on the STN Sports app.
We're bragging a lot about the app, but we love it when you guys come in here too and enjoy everything we have to offer. I mean, the beverage specials are phenomenal. The big screens to watch the game, it's like at one of those regions where you're up close and you see everything center court. Get here early for a seat. But another reason to come in is don't forget to get signed up for Last Man Standing. It's our signature contest. As you guys know, we run it through college football and pro football season. It's a $50,000 guaranteed payout. It's an aggregate payout, meaning if there's multiple guests that finish tied, it'll be split amongst them. But as Brian Blessing used to say, matchsticks to lumberyard. So it's a $25 entry fee. For 4 entries at $100, you get a 5th entry free. It works just like the contest, or just like the tournament. You win and you move on. It's against the STN contest line, but again, for a $25 investment, you can win $50,000. Get signed up for Last Man Standing. It does require you to come in each day and turn your picks in, but hey, if you're moving on and you're winning, why not? You still can watch all the games, enjoy the drink specials, and kind of root against maybe 300 or 400 of your favorite friends that you might meet.
And take advantage of the $25, but if you buy 4, you get that 5th entry free. So you got 5 entries. You're going to pick a winner against the contest line on Thursday. When you win in advance, you pick a winner against Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and subsequently the next week. And so you just got to get through those weeks and have some fun and take home potentially $50,000. So Last Man Standing college basketball is a really quick turnaround, and those numbers we said they kind of half-life on the day. So get yourself involved in Last Man Standing. And again, Chucky says for $25,
Can't beat
get
it.
that entry, but better yet, for $100, get 5 entries.
And again, we're going to be expanded hours, so we're open earlier. We stay open later. The app's 24/7, and just the atmosphere is so much fun. We talk about football season and that big game in February, which is fun. But during tournament time, when you've got games that are starting at 9 a.m. our time, and the last game usually starts maybe in that 7:30, 8 o'clock range, just the crowd, the atmosphere, the environment, the hype and buzz in the room, it's electric. I mean, we from our office, we can hear people hooting and hollering and cheering when a three's made or a team goes on a run or a team decides to dribble it out at the end and they don't cover the spread. If you haven't experienced it, it really is a lot of fun. We know this brings the sportsbook to you, but we still love it when you guys come out. So have a great tournament, have some fun. Don't forget to get signed up for Last Man Standing. Again, it's a $50,000 aggregate payout. So we look forward to chatting with you guys next week and kind of updating you guys where we're at that point. But overall, it should be a fun tournament, and we're super excited about it. Want to add anything else?
No, good. Let's get it started.
So Jason, I'm Chucky, and for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports, always. We'll see you guys here, and don't forget about the app, and good luck during the tournament, and we'll see you guys next week.